Imagine standing on a cliff, looking out at the dark, endless sea, when suddenly, a soft, haunting song drifts to you from the waves. It's no ordinary sound, it's a melody that calls to something deep inside you, something you've long forgotten. What would you do? Would you follow it? Would you dare to find out where it leads? Stick with me, because by the end of this story, there's a twist you won't see coming, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. This story begins with Pastor John, a man whose faith was once as strong as the waves crashing against the shore. But recently, something had changed. The fire he once felt for his work had dimmed, and no matter how hard he tried, his sermons lacked the spark that used to ignite his congregation. He prayed, but it felt like his words were falling on deaf ears. The people came to listen, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. He was a good man, a faithful man, but still, something was wrong. The village where he lived was small and quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's business. Pastor John had always felt connected to his congregation, a sense of purpose that made him rise every morning with a reason to continue, to give his all in serving both his church and his community. But recently, even his prayers felt hollow. There were no answers, no sense of the divine presence he once felt so strongly. His faith had started to wane, and he had no idea how to get it back. The villagers often noticed that the pastor seemed distant, like his heart wasn't fully there. They missed the old Pastor John, the one who could lift their spirits with his words, the one who truly believed in the power of faith. But over time, that fire seemed to fade. There were whispers in the village. Some said it was the strain of years of service. Others speculated that the pastor had simply grown tired of the same routine. No matter what they thought, Pastor John knew one thing for sure. Something was missing, and he needed to find out what it was. One evening, after a long, tiring day, Pastor John decided to take a walk along the cliffs, trying to clear his mind. The cool breeze tugged at his coat, and the sound of the waves below calmed him, though he felt a strange emptiness inside. As he reached the edge of the cliff, something caught his attention. Through the thick mist came a soft melodic sound. It wasn't the usual sound of the sea. No, this was different. It was a song, clear and sweet, almost like it was being sung just for him. His heart skipped a beat. Who could be singing at this hour? There was no one in sight, just the soft crashing of waves against the rocks. Yet the song continued, like a lullaby floating on the wind, carrying an energy that was both calming and mysterious. He took a step forward, then another, as the song seemed to pull him toward the edge of the cliff. The melody seemed to grow louder, more urgent, almost as if it were calling to him. Pastor John's mind raced. What was this? Was it a trick? He couldn't explain it, but something deep inside him felt a strange pull, as if the song was meant for him. He moved closer to the water's edge, the sound growing louder with each step. As he approached the shore, he saw something, a figure, sitting on a rock just beyond the waves. It was like nothing he had ever seen before. The figure was a woman, but not an ordinary woman. Her hair shimmered like liquid silver, and her tail glistened with scales that sparkled under the moonlight. She was beautiful, too beautiful to be real, and as Pastor John stared at her, his breath caught in his throat. She smiled, a smile that felt both comforting and mysterious, as though she had been waiting for him. The figure was no ordinary human. It was a mermaid. The mermaid's eyes, deep and ancient, locked with his, and in that moment, Pastor John felt a surge of emotions, fear, wonder, curiosity, and something deeper that he couldn't explain. How was this possible? Mermaids were only stories, myths passed down from generation to generation. He had never believed in them, never even considered they could be real. But here, before his very eyes, was one, sitting on the rock as if she had always been there. She tilted her head slightly, as though reading his thoughts. "Pastor John," she said, her voice soft but filled with an undeniable power. Her words felt like they came from the deepest parts of the ocean, as though they carried an ancient weight. "I've been waiting for you." Pastor John stood frozen, his mind racing. How did she know his name? And why was she speaking to him? He had heard the old stories about mermaids, but he had never taken them seriously. To him, they were just fairy tales for children. He cleared his throat, his voice barely a whisper. "How do you know my name?" The mermaid's smile widened, and her eyes sparkled. "You've been searching for something, haven't you?" She asked. "You've lost your way, your faith. And I can help you find it again." Her words hit him like a wave, knocking him off balance. How could she know what he was feeling? He hadn't spoken to anyone about his doubts, his fears, his loss of faith. Yet here was this mysterious creature, reading him like an open book. The mermaid's gaze softened as she continued, her voice like the rhythm of the tide. "I can show you what you've lost, but only if you trust me. You've felt the emptiness inside, haven't you? The uncertainty, the longing for something more. I can help you find that, but you must come back tomorrow night. Come, and I will reveal the truth to you." Pastor John's heart raced, his mind struggling to catch up with the whirlwind of emotions inside him. Could he trust her? Was this a trick, a dream? But something in her eyes, something in her words, told him that this wasn't just a fantasy. There was power here, power he couldn't explain. He nodded, even though doubt still lingered in his heart. "I'll be here," he said, his voice shaking. The mermaid smiled again, a smile filled with knowing, and with a soft splash, she slipped back into the water, vanishing as mysteriously as she had appeared. Pastor John stood there, staring out at the sea, his mind a swirl of confusion and wonder. What had just happened? Was he going mad, or had he truly encountered something beyond his understanding? He had been desperate to find something, anything, to reignite his faith. Could this be it? Could this mermaid be the answer to his prayers? As he made his way back to the village, his heart was heavy with thoughts. The night felt different now, as though the air itself carried a strange electric charge. Pastor John didn't know what would happen when he returned to the shore the next night. But one thing was certain. He couldn't walk away from this. The mermaid had offered him something he couldn't ignore, a chance to find the faith he had lost, the purpose he had longed for. But what would it mean to trust her? What would it cost? Stick around, because the journey is just beginning, and you won't believe what happens next. The next evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned an eerie shade of purple, Pastor John found himself standing at the same spot by the cliffs where he had met the mermaid the night before. His heart was pounding in his chest as he scanned the horizon, waiting, unsure of what to expect. Was she really going to return? Could he trust her? Or was this all just a strange dream, a figment of his imagination? He tried to shake off the doubt, but it lingered like a shadow, refusing to let go. The ocean in front of him was calm, its surface smooth as glass, reflecting the dimming sky above. There was a silence that felt almost too still, too quiet. It was the kind of silence that made your skin crawl, as if the world itself was holding its breath. As he stood there, gazing out over the water, Pastor John felt a strange sense of anticipation, something pulling him toward the edge of the cliffs. His mind kept replaying the words the mermaid had spoken. "I can help you find it, but you must trust me." She had promised to reveal the truth, but what truth could she possibly have for him? He was just a pastor. His life was dedicated to faith, to guiding others through the teachings of the Bible. He had always believed that faith alone was enough to heal the deepest wounds. Yet here he was, on the edge of the sea, waiting for a creature from myth, someone who had no business being real, to show him something he could never have imagined. The weight of the moment pressed on him as he walked down the jagged rocks toward the water's edge. The air was thick with the scent of salt and the sound of distant waves. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the same soft, haunting melody from the night before began to drift through the air. Pastor John froze. The song, gentle and clear, seemed to reach deep into his soul, filling him with an emotion he couldn't quite name. It was a feeling of longing, of hope, mixed with a trace of fear. He turned slowly, his heart racing. And there, emerging from the water like a vision, was the mermaid. Her long silver hair flowed behind her, and her shimmering tail flicked in the water as she glided toward him. Her eyes locked on his with an intensity that made his breath catch. She was more beautiful than he remembered, but there was something else about her now, a sadness in her eyes that hadn't been there the night before. "Pastor John." She spoke his name, her voice like the softest wind. "You came back," he nodded, unable to find his voice at first. His heart was pounding in his chest, and for a moment, he didn't know what to say. He had so many questions, so many doubts. But one thing was certain. Something inside him urged him to stay, to listen. "I didn't know if I should," he admitted, his voice low. I don't know if I can trust you. This is all so strange." The mermaid's gaze softened, and she swam closer, her movements graceful and fluid, almost hypnotic. "I understand your fear," she said. "This is a path few are willing to walk. But you are here because you are searching for something. Something that has been lost to you." Pastor John's chest tightened as he thought about the emptiness he had felt for so long. His faith, once so strong, had begun to crack, and nothing he did seemed to fill the void. He had tried to pray, to read the scriptures, to lead his congregation, but every attempt felt like he was grasping at air. What was he missing? What was he not seeing? "You've lost your faith," the mermaid continued, as if reading his thoughts. "But more than that, you've lost your connection to the world around you. You see only what you've been told, not what is real." Her words hit him like a wave, and for the first time, he felt like someone truly understood his struggle. But what did she mean? What was she talking about? Pastor John took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "What do you want from me? Why me?" The mermaid's eyes deepened with sorrow. "I am bound to the sea," she said softly. "But I was once human, just like you. A long time ago, I made a choice that took me from the world of men and trapped me in the depths of the ocean. But I am not here to make you like me. I am here to help you find what you've lost. You were human?" Pastor John asked, his voice full of wonder. "How? How is that possible?" She nodded. "Yes, I was once a human, a woman who lived many centuries ago. I was a priestess, a servant of the sea gods. But when I betrayed them, I was cursed to live in the waters, forever removed from the world I knew." Her voice trembled with the weight of the story, and Pastor John could see the deep pain in her eyes. "I didn't understand then what I was giving up, what I would lose. And now I carry the burden of that choice every day." She looked at him with a mixture of longing and hope. "You, Pastor John, are the key to breaking the curse. You have the power to help me return to the world of the living. But in return, you must face the truth of your own soul." Pastor John's mind raced. A curse? The sea gods? This all sounded impossible, like something out of a fairy tale. Yet, as he stood there before her, staring into the depth of her ancient eyes, he couldn't deny the truth in her words. He had been searching for something to make sense of the emptiness he felt. Could this be it? Could the mermaid truly be the answer? His thoughts were interrupted as she continued, her voice growing more intense. "The curse will not be broken easily," she warned. "The path ahead is fraught with danger. But you must decide, Pastor John. Will you help me? Will you step into the unknown, even if it means confronting the very thing that has eluded you your whole life?" The air around them seemed to thrum with the power of her words. Pastor John's mind swirled, filled with a whirlwind of emotions. Could he really help her? Could he even help himself? He had so many questions, so many doubts. But one thing was clear, he couldn't turn back now. Whatever this journey was, it had already begun. "What must I do?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The mermaid smiled, a mixture of hope and sadness in her eyes. "Come with me," she said, "and I will show you the truth." As she spoke, the water around her began to stir, rising in a gentle swirl. Pastor John stepped forward, his heart racing. He was about to embark on a path that could change everything: his faith, his life, and his understanding of the world. He had no idea what lay ahead, but there was no turning back now. And so, with a single decisive step, Pastor John followed the mermaid into the unknown, not knowing what he would find or if he was ready for what was to come. Pastor John followed the mermaid deeper into the water, the world above him fading as he descended into the unknown. His heart was pounding in his chest, not from fear, but from the anticipation of what he was about to witness. The sea, which had always been an endless expanse of mystery, now felt like a living entity, a place of both danger and wonder. The mermaid swam effortlessly beside him, her tail slicing through the water like a blade, her movements graceful and fluid. As they moved further from the shore, the light from the surface grew dimmer, and the sounds of the outside world faded into silence. The only sound now was the rhythmic pulse of the ocean around him, as if the sea itself was alive, breathing. "Where are we going?" Pastor John asked, his voice barely audible in the deep. The mermaid didn't answer immediately, her gaze fixed on the path ahead. Then she turned to him, her eyes gleaming with a quiet intensity. "You must understand," she said softly, "the ocean holds more than just water. It holds the memories of the past, the secrets of those who have come before you. My curse binds me to these depths, but it is not just a punishment. It is a lesson that you need to learn if you are to regain your faith." Pastor John nodded, though his mind was still racing. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was in way over his head, that this wasn't just a simple meeting between a man and a mythical creature. This was something much deeper, something that had been set in motion long before he had stepped into this water. They swam for what felt like hours, the ocean around them darkening as they ventured farther into the abyss. The temperature dropped, and the water grew colder the deeper they went. But Pastor John wasn't cold. In fact, there was a strange warmth inside him, a warmth that seemed to come from the mermaid's presence. She was guiding him, leading him to something, a place he couldn't yet understand. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the bottom of the ocean, where the water was pitch black, and the only light came from the faint glow of bioluminescent creatures swimming in the depths. The mermaid stopped and turned to face him, her eyes glowing softly in the dark. "This is where it all began," she said, her voice heavy with the weight of centuries. "This is the heart of the ocean, the place where the first gods of the sea gave birth to life as you know it." Pastor John stared in awe. The water here was calm, still, and as he looked around, he noticed something carved into the walls of the deep were ancient symbols, glowing faintly, like forgotten words that had been lost to time. They seemed to pulse with a rhythm, as if they were alive, waiting for something. "What are these?" Pastor John asked, his voice reverberating in the silence. "These are the teachings of the sea," the mermaid replied. "They are the secrets of life and death, of creation and destruction. These walls hold the knowledge of everything that has ever been and everything that will be. It is here that the truth of your faith lies." Pastor John looked closer at the symbols, but the more he tried to decipher them, the more they seemed to slip away from his understanding. The images were like fragments of a dream, just out of reach, yet strangely familiar. "I don't understand," he said, frustration creeping into his voice. "What does all of this have to do with me? I'm just a pastor. I preach the word of God. I guide my people. I don't belong here, not in this place." The mermaid's eyes softened, and she swam closer to him, her presence soothing. "You are here because you are not just a man of faith, Pastor John," she said, her voice gentle. "You are someone who has lost something. You have lost the connection between the land and the sea, between the earth and the heavens. The truth is not in the words you speak. It is in the connection you feel with the world around you. The sea is alive, just as your faith should be alive. Pastor John felt a knot tighten in his chest. The mermaid's words were cutting through him, exposing the raw emptiness he had been carrying for so long. She was right. He had been preaching faith, but had he truly believed? Or had it all become a routine, something to be done rather than felt? He had forgotten the beauty of the world, the sacredness of life, the deeper connection that his soul had once known. The mermaid continued, her voice a soft, steady rhythm. You came here searching for something, Pastor, but you cannot find it through words alone. Faith is not a doctrine, it is a living force. It is the rhythm of the sea, the pulse of the earth. It is everything that connects you to the world around you, to the people you serve, and to the very breath you take. As she spoke, the ocean seemed to respond. The water around them began to shimmer, and the glowing symbols on the walls grew brighter. A soft current stirred, swirling around them like the gentle caress of a breeze. Pastor John closed his eyes, and in that moment, he felt something he hadn't felt in years, a deep, overwhelming sense of peace. The weight he had been carrying, the doubts and fears that had plagued him for so long, began to lift. He could feel the ocean feel its energy, its power. It was as if he was connected to something greater than himself, something that transcended the limits of his understanding. Do you understand now? The mermaid asked, her voice quiet but filled with hope. Pastor John opened his eyes, and for the first time in what felt like forever, he truly saw. The ocean was not just water. It was life. It was the pulse of the earth, the rhythm of the universe. And his faith, his purpose, was tied to it all. I think I do, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I've been searching in all the wrong places. I've been looking for answers in books and prayers, but the truth was always here, in the world around me. The mermaid nodded, her smile gentle. You are not just a man of faith, Pastor John. You are a part of this world, as much as the sea is a part of you. And when you understand that, when you reconnect with the living world, you will find the truth you have been seeking. Pastor John nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. He understood now faith was not something to be practiced in isolation. It was a living, breathing force that connected all things, from the deepest ocean to the furthest star. It was not a doctrine to be followed, but a truth to be felt, a truth to be lived. The mermaid's form began to shimmer, the light from the symbols on the walls casting an ethereal glow around her. You must return now, she said, her voice soft. But remember, Pastor John, what you have learned here is not just for you. It is for the world. You must share it. Teach others what you have found. And with that, she turned and swam toward the darkness, disappearing into the depths of the ocean. Pastor John stood alone in the quiet, the weight of the moment settling over him. He had come here searching for answers, but now he understood. The truth was not something to be found in the pages of a book. It was something to be felt, something to be lived. And it was waiting for him, waiting for all of them in the pulse of the world around them. As he began to swim back to the surface, he knew one thing for certain. His life, his faith, had changed forever. The ocean had shown him the truth. Now it was time for him to share it with the world. As Pastor John swam upward, the weight of what he had just experienced settled in. But strangely, he felt lighter, freer, as though a great burden had been lifted from his heart. The ocean around him was no longer a place of fear or the unknown. It was a sanctuary, a vast, living entity, connected to everything around him, his faith, the earth, the people he served. He swam faster now, the water feeling warmer as he neared the surface, his heart racing not from panic, but from an overwhelming sense of peace and understanding. For the first time in years, he felt truly alive, as if his purpose was clear, like a guiding light had finally pierced the darkness of doubt that had clouded his soul. When Pastor John broke the surface, the cool night air rushed to greet him, and the sight of the familiar cliffs made him pause for a moment. He looked out at the sea, a sense of gratitude rising within him. The mermaid had shown him the truths that were far beyond the narrow walls of doctrine and rituals, truths that flowed like the tide, ever changing, ever present. His mind drifted to her last words, "Share what you have learned. Teach others what you have found." The message was clear. It wasn't enough for him to understand the truth himself. He had to share it with those who needed it most. Pastor John had always believed that faith was about words, sermons, teachings, but now he understood that it was more than that. Faith was a living force, a connection to the world and everything in it. It was in the way the waves rolled onto the shore, in the rhythm of the earth's heartbeat, in the love shared between friends, in the quiet moments of reflection. It was in everything. The world wasn't just a place of isolated human experience. It was a vast, interconnected network of life, of which every single soul was a part. He stood at the water's edge, the moon now high above the horizon, casting a silver glow across the ocean. It was here, standing in the quiet stillness, that he realized something else. It wasn't just about finding faith again. It was about reconnecting with the world around him, with the earth, with the people. It was about understanding the divine in all things, and that his role as a pastor wasn't to be a solitary guide to salvation. It was to help others see the truth that had always been there, waiting for them to understand. A soft breeze swept through the air, and Pastor John turned toward it, feeling the connection between himself and the universe deepening. He knew now that his faith would never again be confined to the walls of a church or the words of a sermon. His faith would be in every step he took, in every breath he drew, in every moment of kindness, and in every act of love. He was no longer just a man of God, he was a man of the world, a man of the living, breathing faith that flowed through all things. As he walked back toward the village, the weight of his previous doubts seemed to vanish, replaced by a quiet certainty. He wasn't sure exactly how he would share this new understanding with his congregation. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. He was ready. Ready to break the chains of doubt and share with others the living truth he had discovered. The journey with the mermaid had shown him that faith wasn't something to be confined to doctrine or tradition. It was something to be experienced, something to be felt with every fiber of your being. As he walked toward the church, Pastor John reflected on the mermaid's final words, her soft voice echoing in his mind. "When you understand, you will be ready to share the truth with the world. And when you share it, you will change lives, and your faith will never again be the same." He paused for a moment and smiled, realizing the truth in her words. He wasn't just going to preach about faith anymore. He was going to live it, breathe it, and share it in everything he did. And for the first time in years, Pastor John felt the fire of faith burn brightly in his heart once more. When he entered the church, it was empty, as it often was late at night. He stood before the altar, closing his eyes, feeling the presence of something greater than himself. He didn't need words. He didn't need the familiar rituals. In this moment, he understood that the divine wasn't confined to a building. It was in the people, in the world, in the very air that he breathed. And as the wind blew gently through the open windows, he knew that his life had just begun anew. The next morning, as dawn broke over the village, Pastor John stood at the pulpit, ready to deliver his sermon. But this time, it wasn't a sermon of routine or obligation. This time, it was a message of connection, of living faith, of the understanding that faith wasn't something to be spoken, but something to be shared, lived, and felt. As he spoke to his congregation, he could see the change in their faces. They were listening, really listening. And for the first time, Pastor John realized that the truth of the sea, the truth of the world, wasn't something to be feared. It was something to be embraced. And though the mermaid was gone, her message would live on in him, guiding him through every step of his new journey. Pastor John had found the truth, and now it was time to share it with the world. And as he spoke to the people, he knew this. The living faith that flowed through him would spread to others, and together, they would create a world where faith was not just a word, but a way of life. As the congregation filed out, each person left with a new understanding, a new sense of connection. The church had changed. The world had changed. And Pastor John, the man who had once struggled to find his faith, had found it deep within himself, in the pulse of the world, in the rhythm of the sea, in the love shared by all. His journey was far from over, but now he knew he was no longer alone. He was part of something greater, something alive and breathing, and he would share that truth with the world for as long as he lived. What do you think? Was the mermaid's help truly the end of the story? Or is there more to this secret world beneath the waves that Pastor John has yet to uncover? Let me know about it in the comments section below, and hit that like button and subscribe for more epic stories like this.